When you're looking at a question about the scale of an organization, you're most frequently going to be asked to evaluate a small versus large or large versus small scenario. It's exactly the same response, obviously just reversing the advantages and disadvantages dependent upon the scale of the organization that you're advising, okay? So when you're doing this, the key to a good answer about scale is to really consider the specific nature of the business you are referring to. This will be a common question for a paper 1 where you've got a case study to work with, and you're really trying to think about what that business does, who its clients are, and what they offer, because scale advantages and disadvantages are unique to the business itself, and what might be good for one organization will be very different for another organization. But generally, some of the advantages of being a small organization might include the fact that you can be flexible. The smaller you are, the less elements you've got to your organization, the less employees you've got, the easier it is to make decisions, to do things quickly, to make change. It's a flexible organization, and that means that if you want to sell one thing today and change it up a bit tomorrow, you can. You want to change a storefront sign, you can. You can't do that if you're a multinational corporation, okay? So flexibility is one thing. Another advantage you could talk about is the fact that it's much more personal. A small organization is more likely to have an owner on site. Even if the owner's not on site, it's likely to have a very small staff on site, and so those staff can become familiar with regular customers. They are more invested in the business because it's their whole employment. They're sort of not spreading that around, like if you're a large scale organization and you've sort of just got casual staff working for lots of different people. And because you're small and you've got that flexibility, you can also take more time to potentially customize or personalize the service that you are offering to your clients. A small business is often likely to have a real element of passion. It's going to be directly responsive to what the owner cares most about. A large-scale organization is not going to have that because it's passing through so many layers of decision-making before it becomes a part of the business that some of that passion and drive is likely to be lost as they're developing it. There's the obvious factor of independence. You know, if you're small, you have the freedom to do what you want, to make quick decisions. You're not bound by boards of directors. You're not bound by big contracts. You're able to just go, you know what, this is what we want to do. And employees are more likely to be independent because the employees are likely to be given a bit of freedom on a day-to-day basis to do what they think is a good idea because they're central invested into your organization. Small organizations, they're more likely to find a niche because they're not trying to expand and become, mass marketers. They can afford to go, actually, we're going to specialize in this really small thing that only this group of people want because we only want to sell to this group of people. And so they can target something really unique. And alongside that niche market, they've also got the capacity to be innovative. They can change quickly. They can respond to what people around them are suggesting. That element of creativity can be directly funneled into the actions of the business. They're likely to get local support. This is a big one when you're talking about scale. I think something we often forget, even though most of us interact more frequently with large-scale corporations, is that secretly a lot of us really just like a small business. There's a lot of, particularly governments, promote small business interests, and so that community and local support around helping people who are part of your community, living in your community, and then serving your community through service is really, really helpful. When looking at the downsides to being a small business, or perhaps just looking at the upsides to being large scale, you've got the obvious factors like an economy of scale, okay? The larger you are, the lower your cost per unit, the more efficient your production is going to be. There are definite advantages to that, okay? Large-scale organizations are also more likely to benefit from a wider variety of ideas, more marketing capacity, greater brand awareness, okay? So there are lots and lots of other advantages to that. They're also more likely to have good funding behind them, and it's easier for them to obtain funding. So they're more likely to get loans. They're more likely to have access to shareholders who want to invest in them. So when they want to make changes or they want to grow, the funds are there for them to do that. They also in some ways benefit from the stability that their structures provide. So while a small organization has the advantage of flexibility, sometimes flexibility isn't always a good thing. And while it's nice to be able to change on a whim, sometimes perhaps you shouldn't. And so large organizations do benefit from the stability in place of having boards, of having processes, of having set bureaucracy almost in order to make those key decisions. There are obviously lots of other things, but I think probably a big one is also survival. If you're a small scale organization, you don't have a lot to lose, and if it goes wrong, you lose it all quite quickly. If you're large scale, chances are you can ride out the hard times for a longer period of time before it no longer becomes viable for you to operate. So the desire to have that survival is a real incentive for organizations to grow alongside that economies of scale factor. There are obviously other reasons, but these are just a few of the, I suppose, advantages of being large or the disadvantages of being small that you don't have.